Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Today is September 1st, 2025. I'm going to work on a game today during Labor Day. What a great day to have a day off so I can work on my game. So I've got a to-do list here. It's pretty nice, but before we begin, you sometimes have to celebrate what you have done, where you've gone. So just so you're aware, I've got a column here called Done. And in there I have all the stuff I've done on stream. And when I start a stream, things are not checked, because those are the things I did last time. Perfect. So let's just click all these off. There we go. Now, I've got a new to-do called To-Do Queue. Read this thing the other day. I think it was on Twitter. Twitch, Twitter, X. I might have bookmarked it. And it says the difference between... Well, let me find it. Maybe I don't have it. I must have just liked it. That's okay. We'll see if I can find it quickly. But it's basically the difference between people who are super successful and not is they get to they have a to-do list of 10 items and they finish 5 instead of 10. And then they say, well, I've done enough. And they finish. Well, that made me think, that made me think that my to-do list approach can be a little modified so that I actually finish everything on the to-do list, and then every day if I'm under, then I have to pick a little bit more, and I want to stretch, right? So instead of having a big to-do list, I'm going to have a list that I commit to finish. So for this stream, I might finish it all on stream, but if I don't, I'm going to try to finish it off stream. Today, I have to fix the networking code. The problem is that I'm sending way too many server updates, so I'm going to do 4 per second instead of unlimited from server. But before I work on that, I want to do display packet size per second, so then I can see how much I'm sending, and then we could have a before and an after. What that'll do for you as the players, you won't get as barraged with information, which will make it easier for you as the player to have an enjoyable experience. Something else I just wanted to briefly talk about is I figured out what the arrays that I was doing were called. They were called slices. And so I have an array that has its length and capacity contained in the struct. And so their size is not known at compile time. And they're a 3-word thing, length, capacity, and a pointer to the data. Why is this good? Well, this slice thing allows me to easily create, say, every loop I want to check something and put something into a list. I can put the length of that list to 0. And then whenever I add something to the list, it increments the length by 1. So then every loop I set it back to 0, and then I start at 1 and I keep going. So then I can actually have these slices. I already have slices. It's nice. They're called arrays in my my thing. And at some point maybe I'll change it, but I'm going to write here. This is a simple slice implementation. And then this allows us to clear and renew things easily. So I think the first thing today will have to be this display the packet size. It is kind of nice to see how much data you are receiving, how much data you're sending, and have that be shown on screen. So I'll have to manage that info. The great thing about every packet that's sent is it has a data length, and I can just take the data length and add it up, and then at the end of the loop I can take it away, and I can just make that part of all my network code. So any packet I send from the COM loop in the engine, I can have it tell you how many packets were sent per that iteration. Okay. Next thing I can do is I can get the server to only send four per second, and then, I mean, you think about it, if you look at a clock, a timer, and you do like timer, let's do 10 minutes, and you look at it, like, a second is, I mean, it's enough to notice, but 4 updates in a second is pretty good, but 60 updates in a second, we don't need that. They're not even going to notice. And then if I'm also sending, because I'm not sending as much data, I could also send the velocity at every tick. They're not going to ever notice. And so I have some adjustments I need to do. And when I see this, the sheer amount of stuff I'm sending, I'm sure I will go, oh, that's a lot of data. And then I will think about it, and I'm like, well, I was sending too much, and I could send much less, and it works fine, and that'd be great. I did a test over the weekend with one additional player, and then 2. And with one additional player, after a while, things started lagging behind into the abyss. So this is one way to fix that, because what was happening before is there's just way too many packets. The other issue was when I hit 3 players, I didn't write my network code in a way that made it easy to distinguish who was who, and, you know, that passing back and forth process didn't work really well. So I have to do one additional thing. I need to make it to where I know who they are, and I can verify who they are, and allow them to kind of fake authenticate. So we'll see. I think what I'll use is IP address, but we'll see. Okay, so we got 2 of these items here. I know I can finish this first one pretty quickly, and the second one is just a matter of a timer. And then I would probably pad this with additional data. So we'll just say network code. I want to include the velocity. And then if I'm going to do all this, I should probably start sending the coin information so that you can see how much you're collecting. And then goblin that moves towards you and attacks when aggro would be fun. Now, if I think about 3 hours, I think 1.5 to 2.5. I could probably finish all this in 3 hours. So we're going to just leave this as the list and see if I can get it all done. So I got until noon today. So I don't have 3 hours. I have less than 3 hours. All right, display packet size per second. What I'm going to do that is I'm actually not going to make it a module thing. I'm going to make it an engine thing. So then that would be in render. And then up here we've got render. And then we've got some stuff that we draw on the screen. Show debug. So I'm going to do draw text, text format, packets, packet size, and then we'll just do a float to start. No, it's not a float. It's not a float. We're gonna send the full amount in bytes, and then we can make it pretty in a second with another function that I will make. Okay, so now let's jump up to the update loop. Here, where is it? Game update. So we've got packets sent in here. So what I can do is I can make a packet. Let's just do this loop packet size equals plus equals data length. And we'll do that here as well. Great. Make that an int. Just store it up here. And in ENET we can easily do that. So let's do game update. This is my main function. So in here we just add a thing. Okay, so we've got the loop packet size. We'll go back to render. And this can be just 5 pixels. Let's do like 200. Yeah, 300. 5 from the top. 5. Color red. And we can have this. I can do something with this and make it bytes and look nice. So once it loads, we'll just click that. Packet size. No packets are being sent because there's no clients. Okay, so now we're going to add a client. And once we add the client, we should get a packet size. Yep. So packet size is growing. And so I did not reset this every loop. I need to do that. And then the rate at which the client's packet size is growing is really bad. It looks like it's 10 times as fast as the one over here. More than that. We got 5 digits on the 6 on the left, 8 on the right. Okay, great. I'm going to leave it the way it is for the sake of having bigger data size, for the sake of having it easier to show. So we're getting it in bytes. I can't imagine we'll reach gigabytes, but we'll do let's just do this for readability sake. We'll do bytes equal this loop packet size. That's not going to be right. Okay, so we want to convert it to megabytes, gigabytes, megabytes, etc. So we'll start with, there's no way it's going to get there. And then we'll go to megabytes, and then we'll do bytes, and then we'll do kilobytes. Okay. So gigabytes is going to be, this is going to be this will be do I know what I'm doing right now? No, I don't. Do it right. All right, so that should get me the remaining bytes in bytes. And then if I divide it by this, I'll get megabytes. And then this is bytes. And what I need to do is I need to take this value here and subtract. And then take this value here and subtract. Okay, and then kilobytes. Why do I need kilobytes? Oh wait, it goes from bytes to kilobytes to megabytes. So we actually got something up here. So no. And I didn't even do that right, so. Just for fun, we're going to start doing this. This is gigabytes. This should be nothing. Gigabytes, big bits, bytes, bits. I don't care. I'm not really looking to have it be accurately unit-wise for the sake of this, aka lowercase b versus uppercase. I go look it up 2 seconds. It's not the point. Okay, so then we would say int bytes equals 0. We'll do those calculations in a second. Bytes, megabytes, kilobytes, bytes. Just get this done. Good day. Everybody enjoying their weekend, I hope. I am. Or day off. So, now I think I did this wrong. Those are kilobytes. Because if you start with bytes, then kilobytes is going to be 1024. And then this one's going to be, so this needs to go one more time. And then this one needs to do times 1024. And then it needs to do divide 1024. And I could probably simplify the math, but that's not really what we're trying to do today. We're just trying to get something on the screen for, what we're trying to accomplish. So at some point, this needs to tick over to a megabyte. And I'm pretty sure that's wrong. So let's click away. We got bytes. So we've got, I'm going to put a D there. And then my understanding is, I feel like I'm doing this the hard way, but okay. This would get me total whole bytes, and then you would want to take that value and subtract it from here, and that would get you megabytes. And then from here, you want to basically keep doing this ugly pattern. Okay, so there we'll do bytes times 1024 times 1024 bytes, kilobytes, megabytes. Yep. Great. So this would give me bytes, take out the bytes, we're left with bytes. We divide the bytes by 1024 to get kilobytes. Great. Then we take this here, and then we minus, and then we minus the kilobytes times 1024. And there we are. Run that, and then we're good to go. Okay, start the game engine, and there we go. That looks a lot better. I don't know if it's right yet, but we'll see. Okay, it's hard to see this one here, so there we go. Okay, so it is a lot of data being pushed back and forth. The client's receiving a lot. I imagine that once I start moving as a player, the rate at which the server gets packets should change. But this is the better test. If I spawn a bunch of bad guys, that's going to increase the amount of things that are coming out. And yeah. So this is where it goes. It gets much worse at an alarming rate because it's 60 times per second. So you get 60 additional hits. So yeah. And then even if I kill stuff, it's still going to be pretty fast. Or, well, actually it's going to get worse because then the coins come out. And a lot of stuff doesn't need to be updated because if it's not doing anything, it doesn't need an update. I also need to send the entirety of the thing. I need to send the delta of the thing. So I could program a way to, make that run better as well. Okay, so we're at 41 megabytes of data. 45 megabytes, 46, 48. So it's basically getting to be like we're getting like a megabyte a second. This is not good. All right, so we already know that the rate that it's sending data is growing a lot. Now let's send now that's like the total amount that was being sent. I want per loop, so we're going to get this back to the correct amount. Every update loop, we're going to set it back to 0. So we'll just set you back to 0. Run that again. Okay, great. So we're getting a much better packet size. For the sake of making it obvious to the people watching, let's do draw text, and we're going to change that font size to, let's do like 25. Just make it really big and obnoxious so that way you can see it. There you go. Now it's easy for you to read it on the stream. Great. So we're at a small amount of bytes, and then here the amount of bytes is increasing the more guys I add, and that's how many bytes per tick. So that's per update. So we need to actually not do it the way we're doing it. I could multiply it by 6, but yeah, I guess I have to put a timer in there. No, I'm going to take the no. We want to see how much is being sent out every frame. So, or not every frame, but every second. So let's make a timer for this purpose. Okay, we'll do float time packet time. Okay, packet timer. Get into the main here. Set it up. Okay, game update. Here. Okay, so if packet time greater than okay, we reset it, and then we just display this the last loop packet size instead. Okay, and we do draw text packet size. Instead of using this, we'll use last. Okay, so every second it will do that. And we'll go back to game update. Every tick we do plus equal the delta time, and we're ready to go. So this should get me 60 frames worth, or 1 second's worth of packet data. All right, so we're at bytes. And this is the server. Is this right? Is it right? Okay, last packet size, yes. And then we are adding to the this. So before I did, okay, let's just undo and see what we were getting before, because watch, I'm gonna have to redo all this if I mess this up or whatever. Yeah, it has to be much less, but I just need to see it. I have to see the difference. Okay, we got 127, 214 bytes, and 25. So no, it didn't. So I'm gonna write those two numbers down. So the client is 25 bytes, and the server is 214 bytes. So when I do this, it should be much less. So let's see, run that again. Okay. $172 bytes, 25 bytes. Yeah, so it's the same. So we are not really seeing a difference. Now I'm going to run this all the way back. Save. Packet timer needs to be set back to 0 in there. Okay, run that. Something's wrong. Try this again. Packet timer. So, yeah, it doesn't make sense. So now it's at 25 kilobytes. No, that doesn't seem right at all. Oh no, that is because before we were sending. Okay, let's let it get back to a stable state, and then I'll just do simple multiplication here on the left. So, you know, 25 times 60 is 1,500 bytes, which is going to be 1 KB. Then you got 200, and that times 60 is 12,840 divided by 1024, 12 kilobytes. So that's what we would want to see now. Okay, so we've got 24 kilobytes, which is double what I thought it was going to be. How do I know I'm actually doing 60 frames here and I'm not doing 120 frames? So let's show the FPS, because I'm doing it per tick. Sorry, the way I had it set up before was per tick, so I might even be doing double the amount I thought I was doing before. So let's do that at the 0, 0 point for now. Yes, there it is. That's why. We're 120 FPS. Okay, great. So that is the other reason why it was so bad, is it's not only 60 FPS, it's good at 120. So I don't want it to send every tick. I want it to send every 15 frames. But I don't want to send it every 15 frames either. I want to send it every, you know, if we're doing 60 frames per second was what we were thinking. Then if there's 1 second, that's 1 second divided by 60. And then that divided by 4. I would want to send it every 4.1. That's, what are my units? What am I doing? Start over. So we got 1 second. Every frame would be, I want to send it 4 times a second. So, yes, 4 times a second. So then instead of sending it 60 times at a rate of that would get me 1 per second. I want to divide this by 15. So I'd only, oh, what am I doing? I did it again. Okay. This is actually really easy. Every 250 milliseconds. So every 250 milliseconds, I should send an update from the server. That would be the first huge savings, because it just doesn't need it as often as it's sending it. So let's start looking at that. And by the way, we are done with this one. Okay. Today's Labor Day. Is everybody enjoying their time off? How's everyone doing today? If you have any questions, I'm definitely willing to answer if they're not stupid. Because there are stupid questions. Okay, so that would be in the updates. It would be one of these packets here, actually. Game state. So right now I'm sending game state every loop, and that's totally wrong. So we need to add a check here, and I'll just say server update timer greater than server update time. We'll put that into the game state pointer. And then we can initialize the timer and time in the ENET. Okay, so it's not going to be... ENET first is here. We want to allocate... So we'll just do it here. Great. Then every GM update we'll do if trap is server great. And that'll just keep going. Okay, and then we had some code here. Game state pointer. Game state pointer. Great, that's that. And then once we're in here, game state timer turns back to 0. And then we send a packet. So that already should do it. So send that off. Start. Interesting. Not connected. So I must have not started the server. Yes, that's what happened. Have a great day, bro. Thank you. You too. So nice. I'm having a good day. All right, check it out. So nothing good happened yet. So the server is receiving 2 kilobytes per 60 seconds. And over here, we're receiving 25 kilobytes per second. Nothing changed. I imagine this is something I messed up. Isn't that how it always works? So we'll take a quick look and see what I missed. I think what I did is I didn't build the module. Yes, okay. All right, and now we're in. Okay, now we're at 25 kilobytes. Interesting. No, now we're at 13, and then we're at 25. Interesting. So there's definitely something wrong with the amount in here. So why don't I add an integer here that counts this? No. Read the code first. Game state pointer is greater than server update time. And what is server update time? Server update time is 0. The timer, there you go. All right, run. 10. Run. There we go. And crash. All right, something went wrong. We'll just allow that to be ignored for a second. Try it again. And I'm in. Okay. So if you take a look at the top of the screen, oh, something crashed too. Again. Okay, we're just going to keep having crashes. This time I'm going to pay attention and see what exactly crashed. Is it the client or was it the server? I think it was the client, but client comes in, client crashes. Great. So we'll figure out what's going on. There's probably a thing that it was getting much sooner that's not getting now that it's not happy about. So server on the left this time, client on the right, connects. And we've got a issue here related to what? Player state entity. I'm number 4. So, what's the problem? Capacity 5,000, length, whatever. Okay, so what's going on here is I have a player entity, but the entity hasn't been sent or synchronized. So what I can do is I can say and give it a second for it to catch up, right? So we'll do that. Build, start, go. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try this again. Start. Okay, so I must have something running still. Yes, these things are running. Great, and here we go. What's going on now? This is just how it is. Okay, so how can we still have the same problem? Interesting. I guess I have to put the check here as well. This is not the best way to do this, but we'll just keep going. And this is probably very fragile what I'm doing, but okay, great. So here's the change. So we started at client receiving this much data and server receiving this much data. So two kilobytes and 25 kilobytes. I've now gotten the client's receiving rate down to 0 kilobytes, which is interesting. It's down to 856 bytes, which is way better. I'd say extremely better. The server is receiving a lot of data still from the client, and it's because the client's sending it updates, a lot of updates. We haven't optimized client updating to the server its stuff, but I would say for now maybe it's an every interaction and every other packet, maybe not. It doesn't need to be every frame. I think every 4 frames is fine. If I did that, then it would be down to the same level as over here, but every time you add a player, they're going to be getting more and more. So then it would come back up. But every little bit matters. So what has changed? What has changed is now I can spawn a lot of these guys. He's kind of... Oh, interesting. And I'm pretty sure it's because I'm not focused on the screen. Well, no, I don't think that's true. So over here, we're receiving a lot more updates. So we get like full smooth. And all we're doing is we're sending the thing. So I need to include his velocity as well. So then his velocity gets simulated. And then we only get like his movement and velocity updates. And over here, for the client, he's getting a lot of stuff, but it's like, chunky. There's nothing wrong with this. I just can simulate most of this on the client side. So I will modify my packets to start receiving velocity. Lependus XD says, I'm a game dev too. Why aren't you using Engine? You're clearly talented and can build things from scratch, but with engines like Godot, Unity, or even simpler ones, you could achieve much more or more with your time. Wrong. Your question's good. Why am I not using an engine? Your conclusion is your hypothetical or your hypothesis, right? Your hypothesis is that someone like me would do better with Unity and I would get stuff done faster. So, first, it's really easy to tell a game has been made with Unreal Engine. And usually you can tell a game's made with Unity. With Unity, you can just go look in the folder, you'll know immediately. Fine. That's not a look and feel thing. But with Unreal, it's usually obvious. They kind of have frames around them that make it really obvious for you to tell. But let's get rid of those two arguments. When I used Unity, I was roadblocked by shader cache. I was roadblocked by nodes just lagging out. I was roadblocked by so many little things, and I had to conform my workflow to work with it. I have like a very up-to-date gaming PC, and Unity just still slow on that. Why do I not use Godot? It doesn't add me benefit. None of these engines actually have added me benefit that I don't get from just writing my own stuff, right? So I've tried, by the way, to use Unity. I used it for two years, and I made a decent amount of a game, but it just kept getting more and more like overwhelming and slow to manage it within that system. The projects, for crying out loud, like they started taking forever to load. Let's see. Do I have any of my Unity projects anymore? Yeah, I mean, I have one here, and it just became a nightmare after a while. If you're just trying to get your toes wet and you're just trying to make something to show that you can make a game and try to limit the amount of difficulties you have to make a game that already exists, for example, trying to make Tetris or something, sure, go ahead. Unity's fine. But at some point you got to get out of that approach. It doesn't like go for the long term, in my opinion. So yeah, I had like tons and tons of stuff in here that I did. I mean, I had tons of things. I'm writing it in C, so man, I had so much stuff in here. Can you believe how much stuff I had in here? Let's do .cs. I had a lot of C# files. 310. Lots of code. Anyways, enough of that side quest. I don't use engines because I want to build my own engine. I don't use engines because they're really, really slow, and my iteration time matters a lot more than the convenience of having something on the screen in 2 seconds versus a day or two. Once you do this stuff a couple times, you've already got everything you need to do a lot of what you want to. So then when you add something, it just gives you an effect later to help you. So for me, I just don't benefit enough from using an engine to justify using one. Does that answer your question, or maybe you have more poignant, direct questions? But yeah, your outcome, you could achieve more with your time. I would argue I wouldn't achieve more with my time. There will come a point where the wall is the engine, and the engine forces your behavior into a certain way. And if you're at all trying to do something new or interesting, it won't help you. It'll put up a boundary at some point. So right here, so I need to have the server send packets that are including of the thing that I need, which is here. Good. I need to send the velocity of the thing. So I will add that. That'll increase my packet size, but that's okay. So entity will do velocity X and velocity Y. Great. And then we'll jump back over here and we'll do, excuse me. And if the are not the current player, then we will in fact update their velocity. Also, when you use an engine, you really enter the not invented here syndrome, and then you start falling into the trappings of languages like C Sharp's NuGet stuff. And there are people out there that literally don't know how to read INI files, and they couldn't write it on their own. So then they go and they have to download things. I'm confused. If Microsoft has its own INI tool, then why would you use some random person's, right? But anyways, the point is that you become a consumer instead of a producer when you start entering the realm of always using an engine syndrome. If you're a programmer. If you're not, then, So Lependis says, thanks for answering. I understand what you mean. I've used Godot and Unity, and they both have a lot of walls. Maybe breaking those walls and creating your own path would be better in the long run. Yes. So I'm not trying to make one game. I'm not trying to make 2, 3, 4. I'm trying to build a legacy of games. And I'm trying to build a business, so a game development business, that I can pass on to my children. And so I'm deciding to build an engine that I can keep on growing over time. And then that would help me make something that they can use and that is internal. Because I'm not looking to have, some of these companies will go and blow a couple $1 million a year, AAA, and they'll have like an engine that they're using. I'm not going to be getting to that point. If I do, great, but that's not where I'm at. And they're going to just be wasting their money. Whereas I'll have this here. I'll do fine. You don't really have assets if you just have Unity games. You just have code. And it's code as content, not code as an asset. You could go and make libraries, of course, with C# and reuse things. kind of like how they have that marketplace, but it's not the same as having your own engine and using it over a couple games. And I'm writing it in C, so for crying out loud, it is a choice that's very limiting for the general market pool, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for people that, don't understand pointers. I'm not looking for people who are obsessed with object-oriented programming. I find that a lot of the things that OOP offers comes back and bites its tail like the cunning of reason, so I avoid it. It also makes programming a philosophical matter, and you start entering the realm of brain rot with that, so I would be careful with OOP. Okay, we got our velocity stuff getting sent out and updated. Let's test it out. It should make the client updates look a lot better, because right now they are looking choppy. Okay, and then let's do this. Okay, so before you see this is still choppy. So is this the client? Yes, this is the client. So the client should be receiving velocity information. So I don't know why it would jump. It should just be simulating it. So first check is, did we compile this? No, we didn't. All right. So now I'm going to move around. He looks good. I can tell that it's like got a little bit going on there, but it's not too bad. So now we're going to move this guy around. He's still jumping. So what is this? This is the server. The server, and this guy is fine, but he's still jumping. So interesting. If this doesn't equal that, I wonder if the value for velocity is not actually passing through too well. We'll keep this here. We don't need entity. We don't need this to be. There should be a couple of them with velocity, so this should be fine. Study yourself. Hi. Yes, building from scratch is different feeling. I also felt Unity and currently learning the OpenGL. I also left Unity. Yeah, that is actually a common thing. Because of the whole Unity runtime thing, there was a moment where people were like, is this a good idea? A lot of people switched to Godot, and some people went and rolled their own. I'm in the category of I just waited it out, and then I switched to writing my own. And what I found is that you learn a lot more that way. Okay, so we've got some smoothness on the server, which we already knew that was going to be fine because the server is still receiving a ton of packets from the client. So here, nope, it's still messed up. It shouldn't be jumping. Right, so I'm not an expert, so I'm kind of guessing a little bit. So let's see here. Learning OpenGL is nice. I've used a library before. I think it's like Learn OpenGL. There was like this website, Learn SDL, I think. Yeah, Lazy Foods Productions. This site is like ancient, but it's also not. I've done a little bit with SDL, Simple Direct Media Layer, but I don't think that at all fits in the category of learning OpenGL. I think this uses it, or uses some sort of graphics loader. I have to like read through this again. We're written in C. Good. Write it in C, and then that helps you with the next step. Let's see. Learn. Yeah, I don't remember. So yeah, he had OpenGL tutorials. But when I was trying to learn this stuff, I had no clue what I was doing. So it was a lot harder. Now that I know a bunch, it's like I could go through these tutorials like they're nothing. Chris Rogers says, "Hey man, I'm glad to watch and learn. Happy to have you here." Ah, there we go. I recognize the little guy. So D. Let me see if I. Problem is that there's like more to your username, so then I don't really recognize exactly all of it. So let me just 1 second. Yes. Okay. Well, I'm happy you're here. Yeah, I recognize you from... Yeah, Spiro's. Okay, great. Yeah, Spiro's streams are nice. You won't find me talking too much about articles and stuff on here, but you'll see me making games. I guess on his stream I do talk a little bit whenever I do a call-in, but it's not every time. So, right now what we're doing is we're catching some... I feel like the way I wrote my code for velocity, it doesn't do enough of some, like, how would you call it? The prediction part's not there. The good news is, like, you are in the right spot. So I think what I need to do is say, assume the movement... Excuse me. Oh, I know. I can send the user updates more often than the server updates, and I can simulate the creature updates on the front end because they're going to behave a certain way. And the server is going to receive the updates from the user immediately. So then yeah. Okay, so I have an idea. I've been sending the entirety of the updates all at once. All of the game aspects can be simulated, like all the monsters in the game. Everything that's automated can be simulated, right? But when the player movement comes in, we want that to be as correct as possible for the sake of gameplay. So I actually can send the information about the player's position and stuff more frequently to the users because the maximum amount that we'd be sending is like at count 10. So I think I could send it every 4 frames. And it would be enough to make it look good. So just the player data every 4 frames. And in this case, it'd only be 1 player. So that should be pretty fast. All right. So every 0.66, just do that number there. Repeat it a bunch, and that'll be how frequently we send player update data. And then we also would send player update data 4 times a tick, or sorry, 4 times a second. So then I feel like that would be enough to smooth out the player movement. And then the creatures should just be managed. They should just work, actually. They should be working right now. Well, they're not going to work right now because I actually made it to where the server controlled everything. But I can actually set that up again. No, actually, look. They're not jumping. They're smooth. Look at that. That's pretty smooth. The only thing, like the goblins, they're moving smoothly. And they're following well. So let me add another one. And then he's kind of jumping around. This is where he's breaking down. He was working earlier. Yeah, so I'll have to work on that as well. And also the way that you make a correction can be changed. Like, you don't need to move it. You can slowly pull it into where it needs to go. I also think the reason why it looked fine was because there was no moment for the two to be out of sync. So let's keep going. OpenGL is hard as time flows. Things are getting easier, but there is also Vulkan, which is 10 times harder. That is my main plan to learn that. Yes, everybody talks about Vulkan. I have found that I can't get through a stream without somebody mentioning Vulkan. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's good. So look here, he moves and he gets jumped around. I think my first step will be to turn off the server controlling the monsters as much as it is. So when I go here and it touches, that's where they're going to be off. Still accurate circle rotation though. So when does that inaccuracy start? Right here, he's inaccurate. He's jumping around. I get in here and then it's accurate again. Okay. Okay. So the question here. There we go. Okay, so how long have you been doing C and this game dev thing? So back in 2020, I started taking it a bit more seriously to make games, but I had and still do have a full-time job. Full-time job, I write C# code and a web app. About maybe 8 months ago or so, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to learn C and do C programming. And I took that very seriously about 8 months ago. And it's really easy to write C code. It's really easy to do everything without object-oriented programming. It's really nice. What do I do as a living? Again, it's the C# web apps, which I've been doing for a long time, like 13 or 14 years. It's it's easy. Web dev is so easy. You're just gonna get bored out of your mind with web dev, but you can be productive, and that's enjoyable as a consolation prize. I never looked at this, but I added it. So let's go look at that output. So we are getting the output, and the output is velocity exists. And for entity 4 it exists, it doesn't, so interesting. I started, if you want to know for real, I started programming about 2005. So that's like 20 years. And I keep saying about because back then I was learning HTML and I was learning Beyond Build Your Own Net Dream. And I actually did some work on this game right here for one of the really big branches. Actually, the one that everybody builds theirs off of now. And I used to be one of the head coders for that. But yeah, I've been around the block. I am only 18 and I know nothing. Well, is English your first language? Let's start there. It's actually interesting how much you can learn if you put in the effort right now. Okay, I think I already hadn't fixed that multi thing. Network code 4 per second from server. I did that, but we're not where we want to be. And I did send the velocity client, but the problem is that I'm not simulating the outcome of that velocity on my end. So I need to fix that. So we're gonna have No, English is not my. Yeah, so you have a second language. So you know a second language, and you're doing C++. I would argue it's a lot easier to start working on things in C, because the object-oriented part is a very big rabbit hole that a lot of people they have arguments about it being good, and now we've gotten to the point where everybody thinks it's the only way to program. And then that leads to a lot more time navel gazing than programming. A lot more navel gazing, actually. It's actually a pandemic. What do you call it? It's horrible. So, excuse me. Let's see here. I want to let the client update things, and he's not. So let's make him update things. My current fear is pointers. Stop using C++. Use C. Practice your pointers in C, because if you're doing C++, you're going to have to deal with all of the weird, nuanced things. You know what? I need to just... I'm gonna go get something real quick. Just give me one moment. My headphones got stuck in my necklace. Trapped. I don't have it in here anymore. So I can't do the comparison, but this is a C reference manual. If you look at Starstrups, it's this big. Okay? So number one, there's a lot more going on with language features. But the reason why people get so screwed up with pointers is because they're programming in C++. And C++ has this guy right here, new. And no one, or the leap from here to here, from pointers and using news in classes, it doesn't always translate. And then someone goes in there and says, hey, let me try out vectors. Let me try out maps. Let me try out this. And what keeps happening is there's more and more abstraction there that you have no idea what it's doing. So then you need to read the manual, and the manual is thick, and it's very it's not written, it's written clearly unclear. So then some side effect happens and you don't catch one sentence in the manual. And then your stuff doesn't work and you struggle with that for hours and you think it's pointers. You think pointers are your problem. Nope. You didn't understand the stack. You didn't understand the heap. You don't understand context. So go to an easier and more battle-tested language like C. Learn your pointers there. Stay away from objects for a bit. Then come back to C++ later. Then you'll know pointers and you won't cry anymore. Pointers were so easy for me to learn when I stayed away from C++. When you say it, you mean C++, I'm assuming. So D says, it was originally designed for managing complex build systems, which was then sold and taught as the ideal way for humans to conceptualize code. So either OOP or C++. I'm going to say OOP. Excuse me. All right. We need to update the game state locally so that there's a chance that we can simulate the velocity of something. And the game might look really, really bad. Yeah, oops. That got a lot of people mad. All right, is my audio pretty good? You guys can hear me well, it seems like. Server. Here. Okay, so I'm not stopping anything in here. Weird. Doesn't look like I'm stopping updates on the client side. So then that velocity should work. Let's look at the behavior again. There is some velocity, but it jumps back and forth between 0 and something. Let's see here. You get hit. You should be able to simulate that. I'm gonna like find out that my packets, I didn't balance my packets properly, and I'm like getting bogus data. Okay, so it's the goblins. They should have the correct state. They are moving, but they're jumping. They don't need to jump. Okay. All right. I could change my frequency of updates to be a little more frequent, but I just don't think that's the right solution. This isn't the right solution. I just want to see how much it smooths things. I also want to reason through a little bit more. Okay, so yeah, it does make things look a little better, but it's still jumping. I want it to be obvious that there's a problem, so we're going to put it back to the amount I had before. I would like to have I want to fix the monster stuff first, so let's narrow this down. Fix the goblin jumpiness, and then the way I'm going to fix the client jumpiness is through more updates from the client. Or by updating the client's position more often, so it's like more real time, because that's a player, and you need to know what they're doing more than the goblins. The goblins are just going to be predictable. So run this. I'm going to just take some notes about the goblin behaviors. Okay, so we're in, and it's already having its little dance party problem. And it stopped. Okay. So let's make another one over here. And so he has the jitters. And I think he has the jitters because the way that his state is managed is there's a couple internal timers. And those timers we're not sending information about those timers over here. So their timers are off. And I'm pretty sure the timers are off because when this guy spawned and he sent his data, he's starting at 0, but we're already a little ahead on the server, so then they're going to keep being off by a little bit. And the reason why these guys are fine is because their timer started in sync. Right, so let's do that. Let's assume it's related to the timer state, and we want the server to ultimately have total control over the timers. So let's do that. So look at packets again. Okay, so study yourself. C and C++ went to a 5-star bar. C was stopped by the gates because by the gate guards because C got no class. Because of this, I star C++. But now my life's a joke. That's right. Even programmer jokes can be dad jokes. Excuse me. Down here, this is where it matters. So there's a time thing I added to the goblins as part of their state machine. And that time variable, I didn't include it in my packet. So we need to find where I'm doing that. Goblin State Patrol. Right here. Crazy way it wasn't showing up earlier. So if we're in the patrol state. Oh, it's a distance vector. Its target vector could be off. Would that be it? Probably. That could be part of it. Excuse me. Distance. Target entity ID. Target. So we're in patrol mode. Entity state ID. Goblin has a target. We set the target entity. So then target. I'm not going to disturb now, sir. No, I mean, you can chat. I don't do this to be entirely 100% focused. I do it to be partially focused. And chat. That's the whole point. So let's see here. Okay, so when we have a target, oh no, we don't. The problem's with the patrolling. And when you set up the patrol, there's a, I set up a, I think it's create unit actually. When I set up a goblin, I'm setting up like a target or destination vector or something. Oh yeah, so destination toggle. There's the first one that I don't think I'm sending an update about. So destination toggle. And then the other one is destination. Those two are not being sent. So then how can I simulate the fullness of what's going on? Okay, good. That's what was the problem, I think. So we're gonna take that assumption and run with it. Come on, server to, okay, p_server. There we go. Send game state units. Yes. So here it is. We are sending a lot of things, but we're not sending the destination vector and the toggle. So let's do destination. No, let's do toggle first. Toggle, destination toggle, Boolean. and then we'll send these two of destination. Great. Now we're going to read these on the other side. We got 3 of them. So then we'll do boolean dest toggle, and we got a boolean up here that I can copy that pattern, and then we'll do this, and we'll do destination xyz xy. Okay, and then we update those if we're not the player. Okay, we're good. Destination X. All right. This should provide enough information to the client to keep his goblins simulated properly. Okay, I'm the client right now. Server's on the right. I'm going to spawn a bunch of them. Look at that. They look smooth now. Interrupt. They still look smooth. I can't tell. There's no choppiness. Perfect. Oh, I just saw some choppiness. Oh, no, that was just the king. So, we fixed it. So now I'm going to move the king unit around. Oh, sorry. Everybody's targeting me. Okay, so the choppiness here will be on this guy. And it will be this. And that's because the targeting is not taking into consideration the velocity of this unit because we haven't finished this unit. So we can't simulate this unit. So it can't just directly follow this unit. So then when this unit jumps, it jumps. So that's okay. Whereas if they were targeting him, everybody works perfectly and the server works perfectly, and it's because it's simulation. So great. We are one step closer. Camera off for pancake delivery. Wow, I live in such a nice place. Camera's off. Wow. Who would have thought I would get pancakes? What a good day. So I'll leave the camera off for a bit. You know, you can hear me, you can see what I'm doing, so it's good enough for now. The camera will come back on when I'm done eating the pancakes, and so it's not gross on stream. So we have fixed the goblin jumpiness. And let's put this in the right category. So we fixed 2 items so far, and we need to do the goblin jumpiness. We did that. Now we need to do the client jumpiness, which is basically the king that we see on the screen. So that's that. Oh man, I got pancakes. This is wonderful. Okay. So, let's see the fix client king jumpiness. So, client king jumpiness is going to be fixed by assuming that he's still doing what he was doing last time is assumption number 1. So we would want to record his previous velocity, and maybe we need his previous action. But the other thing is we could always record or always send his position update data. Constantly update that. So I don't think I limited the... I didn't limit the players' updates. But the way I simulate on the client side, I think that's getting in the way. Kill these guys. Okay, so bring this in, connect. Okay, so he's wigging out down at the bottom there. And I think it's because he changed his state, but it took a bit for the server to figure out that he changed his state. Okay. There's still a few anomaly things. Like when these guys stop moving, they've got... Okay, the jitters are still because of the target code. Alright, so how often should I send an update then? Hello, Spiro. Welcome to the dev stream. I'm not on camera because I'm eating pancakes. But we're working on a game, multiplayer game, and I'm working on a few issues. Well, I started out the stream with like sending way too much packet data. I had tested yesterday with my brother, and after a while, he started having so many packets come in that he was receiving packets from the past and things like that. And that's only happening because he's receiving 60 packets per second. So I've reduced it to about 4 packets a second. And I'm doing client-side prediction on the movement now. So the left side's the client, and the client is still getting updates from the server about state, right? So that works. But the units have some different things because I have to now assume that whatever the player's last directional movement is its current directional movement. And that's the thing I need to adjust. And then, work with that. And maybe the assumption for some other things. So I'm working on some fun stuff. But yeah, thanks. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for checking out. Did you know the Tokyo Spliff? Do you know Tokyo Spliff? He made his own engine in C++ with Vulkan, and he's got really good graphics. Yeah. So his is called, I think he called it the Hell Engine or something. But it was supposed to be a survival FPS engine. That guy is, I'm going to make sure I use the right slang. But, you know what? Let me look it up. But he's totally, he's good. He's not a joke. The Zoomer slang for that would be, yeah, he's cracked. He's very good. I watch him every once in a while. He's definitely got a good hype going on. He's also good. He does make it. What am I trying to say? He does a good show of demonstrating that you can get a lot of stuff done if you just go and do the thing. Like, go and try to do the thing. Five-star wanted criminal in the programming world. I don't know his background at all. But he definitely is good at what he does. So the movement is smooth on my end. It's because we're sending full packet updates to the server about his position. So then what that tells me about this guy, though, is the server is only sending it every 4th, but the server is going to be sending stuff about other players. So the server should always have the most up-to-date information, so it should simulate it correctly. However, the players should be having the simulation on their end and getting corrected. So the king right now is all over the place, but he should have a velocity. That velocity should actually stay the same because the fastest you can stop is longer than the thing. And so if I just do that, then my corrections are going to look a little bit better. And the other thing is I could actually make it a distance-based thing. Jonathan Blow talks about this. There are people who decide that they're not going to be tired anymore. And it's like they're working on something and they can choose to keep going, but they feel a little tired. And it's like, well, are you really tired, or is it just starting to get hard? Like if you're doing push-ups and you do 10 push-ups and it starts getting hard on the 10th one, do you just stop at 10 because it's starting to be a little harder? Do you keep going? Most people quit as soon as it gets a little difficult. So I'm going to focus on this for a little bit. I'll come back to chat. Okay, so I know it's a problem. I just need to store a little bit about like key, like what the most recent key updates we've received, and have that be passed to the server, and just assume that that's what the player's still doing, and go from there. So instead of having the client side reduce the player's movement, that's actually what I'll do. Okay, let me see. So instead of reducing the velocity of a player client every update, so that's somewhere in here, I have the velocity getting kind of reduced by a flat rate. Ooh, where am I doing this? I must have moved it somewhere else. So I am like capping, and I am speeding things up. And then I had some code. Oh, I do it for all the entities. So I have some code where I'm slowing their speed down by like a friction factor. Yeah, it's this vector scale. So what I could do here is turn that off if it's a player client. Okay, there we go. I'm almost done with this pancake, so we'll get back to normal high speed. All right. So now it will only update if it's not controlled by a player client, or if it's the server. If it's a server, we always update. We always do it. Because the server's gonna know. Server is the source of truth on this stuff. Okay, so now. Any more pancake requests? Yes, I'll have some more actually. That'd be great. Yes, please. I guess I'm eating more pancakes. It's better than donuts. 2, please. 2. Okay, so we're going to iterate through our list of players. Since there are not a lot of players, it is not going to be much of a deal. Also, another thing we would do is so if we're a server, we always want to scale things down. If we're a client, we want to scale it down unless if it's controlled by someone else. But we also... She's the wife. So let's see here. So if I'm always going to want this to happen for people that are not the current player. Another player. There we go. So the idea is that it's going to not collide on yourself. So first off, we're going to do operating kitchen from stream chat. That's great. So let me see here. The first thing, I'm just going to make this easy on myself. I'm going to get the current player ID, and we're just going to skip if there's a match. How do I look without a beard? I look like I do with a beard, but without a beard. A non-answer. Okay, so let me see here. If you're the current player, then continue. Is entity control? Oh no, sorry. If it's the current player, no. What am I doing? Is entity controlled by another player? So if there's a match, no. So we'll do game state pointer player client dot entity ID equals entity ID. There we go. So if we have a match, Then what you want to check is okay, so player client, we'll do this. There we go. And then entity ID. If they match, then we would return true. But the problem is that if it's not, or if it's you, then we want to return false. So we'll do a little if check in here. Go for here. All right, good. Coming for the plate. Player client is here. Excuse me. This should be easy. Okay, so we need to check and see if the current player client, so that would be game state pointer player client, if player client does not equal null and game state pointer dot player client dot entity ID equals entity ID. We could probably cancel this before the loop even begins, right? So we could put this part here. Up here, we can do this. Okay, we could say if you're not null and your entity ID matches this one, return false. So we'll just collapse it before we even get there. Then here, we don't need to do the checked anymore because we already did, and we can just return true. So let's just reason through this. We get the length, get that guy, boom. If the entity IDs match, then we return true because that's a player, and otherwise we get false. Great. Jump over here. It's treated like a Boolean. Great. Build and launch. By the way, that build took me almost no time. So someone asked way earlier about Unity. The fact that I can build in 2 seconds is something I know I couldn't have done in Unity. Ah ha 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 ha, look at that. All right, and we're jumping around. So what's the difference? There isn't anything. It's still choppy. So the client's seeing the server guy jump around, which he should not be seeing, and that's because there's no velocity. Okay, well, the other thing could be that as soon as the server is up, that's it. The problem is that the server is a player too. So when the server moves, he needs to update you that he's moved. That's part of the problem. So what we had changed was the client being choppy, but we forgot to consider the fact that this is the server. Let's think about that more. We've done it so that... I get it. We don't maintain entity IDs across from the server to the client. So the client so here's what's happening. I have a list of player entities or player clients. So that would be here. And these player clients the data is not being synchronized across. So what happens is, or what is happening, is that the information about this player and its entity ID is not being transferred across the game barrier. Here, one second. I'm going to help with the door. The thing about having a toddler is he always wants to get into your office. So if the wife drops something off for you, you got to protect your door from a little invader. To remedy this issue here about the entity IDs, I would need to send the other player client data. But what I could also do is kind of flip this idea and say, why not have a player controlled bit on the entities, and then just have that information be sent to the server, so that then I can know when anything is in that state. And that's the easier route. And that's what I'm going to do. There we go. Perfect. All right, so we're going to go add this here. Let's see. In create unit, we want this to be false. And then when I set the player client entity ID in the server, or no, when I set the player client entity ID, then that's when we get there. All right, let me just do a quick look here. So let's do p_server. We'll do a little bit of this. Great, player controlled. And then we'll always update whether or not it's player controlled, regardless of who and what. Player controller? Player controlled. Whatever. All right, that's that one. And jump over here. We're going to add to the end of this write packet. Great. So the information is being transferred. And now the information needs to be set. So we need to do entity ID. Just see where we're setting the entity ID. So that would be entity ID equals here. Great. And then we'll find a game client unit ID. So in here, we're spawning a new one. So that game client is your player. Yep. So then in here, I would say, okay, well, let's see, we're getting this unit. So source entity would then be player control equals true. Then we would go down here and do this for that as well. Source entity player control true. And then let's just verify what we're doing here. So this is, yeah, this is for spawning a player. So there will be a bug introduced later by me because of this. I'm fine with that. Okay. Because of, excuse me. Okay, on the right, on the left. He's still jumping around. He's not. Okay, great. So we need to change our code for the is it a player or not to actually use that new Boolean field that I added. So jump down here. And instead, so here it says we're just excluding. Now here instead we're going to do player entity ID match. So we're not doing the matching anymore. Instead we're doing, instead of with player client, we're just going to fetch the entity ID. So then that would be pretty simple. So we got here, that one's an exclude. Then we'll do if game state pointer dash entities length. So we'll do entity ID is less than the length. Then we will get it. So that would be an entity t entity equals is much faster. Great, we've got it. Should be a pointer. Return entity be player controller. All right, that's it. Bingo. Go, go, go. On. Great. All right, so we got a lot more of the jumpiness going on. Whoa. 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 Okay. So what's going on here is that my velocity is not being dampened. So I'll have to fix that. The client's velocity is out of control. No big deal. Okay, go to the top left. There you go. So what I'm witnessing is there is the client stuff, but what's happening is that things are going a lot further. So I think because he doesn't have any prediction code, I think we should be passing his information on more frequently for the sake of keeping things more accurate. So I think maybe 8 times might look better. And if that doesn't, then we'll go even further. It's only going to be one guy's packet data. You're asking a question about soccer, and I am not a big. I don't watch it, but I hear people like Messi. But no, I don't have an answer. Okay, so the stuff that's player controlled, I don't want the player controlled things to be getting the once every 4 whatever treatment. I want those to be a more frequent update timeline. I also would like to I guess the server should be doing a little bit of that. Okay. I'm going to have the server iterate through what it's controlling or what the player clients are controlling and send that information out to the players. I will not have it send its data out to itself, though. So if you're the player client, I don't need to write a packet to send you its information. This will be in the regular game update one. Yeah, that can be it. That could be way good. Let's first fix my hyperdrive on the client, because that's wrong. So hyperdrive on the client is entity controlled by another player. Player client is not null. So here, this is where it speeds down. So this is totally off. So then, if that's off, then you're just going to get faster and faster. So, is it controlled by another player? No. But, for some reason, it says if it's not null and its entity ID matches, return false. Go back here, false, negate true, should work. So what's happening? Let's see. I could put an else here and just say let's just see if we get anything. Where are you, or what country are you from that you've not had pancakes? I have an idea, a prediction in my head, but I'll save it to see if I was right. Not country, but continent. Alright, so you're still going hyperspeed, which says here we have 3 and 4 controlled by player. So then you ask yourself, well, why is he allowed to go hyperspeed? You know? So on the server, yeah, this is totally just the client. So the client is misunderstanding it's not receiving the information about it being a client. Is my assumption right now. Oh, this is dumb. Oh no, this is not dumb. Did we set the player client's entity ID? Is this not how we did this? We probably did this differently. It was probably done like this. Yeah, it was done like this. Okay, we'll try this again. 10 and 9. There we go. You're fixed. Okay, so we need a little bit more packet information now. So, you know, I said I was going to get a lot of stuff done, but we didn't fix this. We did do this. We can try to do those other things soon. It's been a good day so far. I'm getting closer to that 3-hour mark. I fixed this. Let me just do a little commit to my local Git repo. Okay, so we got the code committed. Very simple task here now is we want to send we want excuse me. We want priority given to player state so that other players see player state and go, that's good. We're already doing that for the player client. The player client is sending constantly what is it? He's sending 1 kilobyte, 92. Or no, that's how much he's receiving. So we are receiving a lot. Just to go back to it, the client was receiving about 25 kilobytes when we started out every second. We got that down to here, and then it grew bigger again to 1 kilobyte because we adjusted what we were sending. What I'm now going to do is increase this again. Now on the server side, we're at 2 kilobytes and still at 2 kilobytes of receiving. That's what we're receiving from the player. He's sending his updates a lot. I imagine that if I did it every 2 frames instead of 120 times a second, I got it down to 60 times a second and possibly 30, it would still look good. Right now, we're getting 120, but this is like on... Oh, wait, no, it's 120. See how this guy moves perfectly. 120 for him. And so I think the way to correct that get it down to 60, see if it still looks good, which I think it will. And then tone it down until it still looks good on the server. And then that'll give me the benchmark for how often I need to send player client data updates to them. I was also thinking that we could change the size of the packet that the player's sending. We don't need to send as much information. So for example, we're updating position, and for the sake of saving data, no, this is actually pretty simple. We've got the position. I could probably figure out the entity ID from the peer ID on the server side. So client server up. Oh no, this is us processing it. So jump over here. This is the actual packet. So we've got a lot of stuff here, but these things are okay. This is not here. This here is not as important. Is the attack triggered? So we're not updating velocity either. So when I add a third player, we're not going to know like what their current velocity is. So let's get this back where it was, because I would have just broke something if I did that. So I don't really see much gain of decreasing stuff. We could force these into integers. That would make it smaller. We don't need item ID in here every time. We might need it if the player changes their item ID, but we don't need it every time. So I could get rid of that. Item position is fine to update every time, and it could be an integer. We don't like. I don't need the floating point precision on this. It doesn't do me anything. So if we did the size of int here, does that actually work? That doesn't. I don't think that actually works. I'd have to cast it to an int and then give a pointer of that int, which is okay. And I think you can just do it like this. You can do int pointer point val2, and then just do and then do int, and then do int, and then just send val2, because it's just writing the packet to a buffer. Okay, that does those two. And then do the same down here. Okay, that's all the way down there. Great. So we'll maintain what we've got here, but we've just reduced the packet size because the floating point's not going to matter to me across the barrier. Okay, so then we jump over here, and instead of reading floats, we're going to now read ints. And then we can change these to ints. And build, start, and start. Okay, and how did you get up here, buddy? What happened? What did you do wrong? I think you got 0 coordinated. Okay, so then instead of floats, these are supposed to be that. So let me try this again. There we go. And I move around. And I move around. Okay, my item position is not being transferred to the server. Okay, so we're going to get that fixed too then. Item ID, item position. Great. Case here. The order of this packet is so it is the ID, then we have position XY, this needs to be a Y, then we do val2 here and here, run. Take that on, press that, there we go. Okay, we're back in business. And just by doing that, let's take a look at our packet data and see if we had any noticeable change. So that would change the amount of information going to the server. And I don't see much difference as a result of that. The client is receiving, 1 kilobyte per second. Okay, we can min-max this all day, but let's move on. What I want to do is I want to do I still want to fix the king jumpiness. I've noticed that the server is going to have velocity updates being published, but we're not going to have velocity data because we're not writing the velocity. I created more space in this packet by reducing everything by a certain amount of bytes. For example, an int, I believe an int is 4 bytes and a float is 8. So I got rid of, or I have the size of 2 of my floats. So I actually can get, with the same amount of space, send the velocity out. And read the velocity. And then write the velocity. I need to declare these outside of the method. Perfect. Send that out. 10, 10. Great. So now we have the velocity being transferred to the client where it wasn't being transferred before, just to have it. And now I've got some spooky behavior that I just witnessed. Some teleportation, which I don't know why that's happening. I'm going to have a lot of fun fixing this. Yeah, everything's out of sync. Okay, so we've added velocity x and then y. Size of int. We got this guy is your ID. See x velocity y. We've got our item position. There's a okay. There's the item ID. So we're still getting our item ID here. Ints all the way through. Velocity x, velocity y. If we're a client, we're writing a packet and we're telling the server what our position is and our current velocity. Before we were just sending our... I think I need to actually let the server... No. Yeah, so this is where the stuff starts getting a little like confusing and messy, is I have to get the server to be able to detect things happening and say stuff, but I can't have the client win when the server needs to win. And right now the velocity is going to win from the client. So what I actually need is, on the player entity, I need what it believes its velocity is and what I think its velocity should be. I'm trying to massage it into the right thing. That's what I need to do. So let me think here. Yeah, this is one of those problems where I probably have to think about it off stream because I'm going to get like feel pressured to actually perform for some reason. So let me leave this for now. I have it in a state where I think I made things worse, but I also don't think I made things worse, like too worse. Client to server update position. We're giving them the velocity. You know what? I'm going to keep sending the velocity for now, but I'm going to comment it out because it did break a lot of things. And I'll reason through that, how I want to control updates. Okay, so we'll just do a quick loop here that makes it update the player client's positions more often, and then we'll leave that for now as the ending point. So I'll try to get that done in the next few minutes. Okay, so player position update timer, player position update time. So we have our server update timer. It's being set here. Okay, great. And then we want this to happen twice as frequently. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing here. Game state pointer timer plus equal delta time. And then we'll do figure out where here. Yeah, so here we're doing it. And now we're going to do the same thing we're doing here, but much less often. So it's this thing here. DQ all your events to the engine, which then will that's we don't do that. Okay, we'll just do a copy paste, and we will say or all entities report out only client or player entities. Then we do this. This is going to be player timer. This will be player time. Timer. Okay, we get through here. We're building our packet. And instead of going through all the entities, we're going to now go through the players, and then we're going to get the things. So this will be player clients. And instead of sending to all of them, we're also not going to send to the server. The server doesn't need to tell itself to do anything. So we'll just do one of these. If player client or player entity ID no. We'll leave that for a second. And we say player client underscores T. Great. If continue. All right, great. So this is going to update the player position to the players. So I'm writing a packet right now to give an update about all the player positions except for the player itself. So this would be who I'm sending it to. So it actually would be better to write the packet, iterate through the player clients and write the packet. And so we're going to skip this guy. And we're also going to create the packet in here after we skip him. And we will do that. Okay, great. So then goes through all the players. We skip the server because the server already has all the data. He doesn't need to tell himself about himself. We go through this, send in all this stuff. We make it. We need to skip the current player's entity ID. So here, we're iterating through the entities. So instead, we would now so we go through the players. We're going to do another loop where we go through the players again, this time with J. Paste that in there. Great. We get the entity ID from the player client. If I equals j, continue. Okay, and then we go through player client is the one with the entity ID that we care about. Great, we got him. We write in the data. We've got two player clients going on here, so now we need to do two. Great, and then take this out of here. This goes in the loop. And we send packet to client. Packet to client is actually going to be a specific client ID. Are we doing client ID here? Send packet to client ID. So we are doing client ID, so then we can just do player cli, the first one. Client ID. Damn. Done. All right. We go back to the top of the loop. We make a new packet. Here, what are we checking? We're checking to make sure it's not the server. Make a new packet. That we write to the packet. We're writing all this data, sending it to the server, and we're doing it again. I think that we need to probably write a function that just does this packet here, because we've got it in two places now, and there's going to be a ton of pain in the butt coming out of this. Oh yeah, we got this thing. Do we have that up here too? Yes, we do. So this is to keep the packets under 512 bytes per packet. It's a good little thing. It says trap send to client, and problem here is that it doesn't make sense here. So we'll get rid of that because it's going to be looping through this. Oh, it's going to be looping through the targets. So it does make sense here. But it doesn't make sense with this. This should be player client ID. There we go. This is a good piece of info here. This is your this is our like game state. This is literally this packet's update thing. So we need to write that in a way that makes sense. It's going to take in an entity, so we need to be declaring it after we've declared entity. So this is where we're going to declare entities. So we would need it down here. And I would say this could be probably a good spot for it. So we'll call this write. We will do build grid. It's called st write game or entity st write game unit to packet. Then we'll do entity write entity to packet. We're just gonna entity packet. We'll do entity underscore t star entity, and then we can do the packet. I know that we have a write packet thing around here that takes in a packet, so we would want to pass in a packet. So I would want the packet to be the left thing. Net packet star packet. Great. Then we can write the contents of this down here. Which would be all this stuff. Let's see, so we're writing I. Why was I writing I? Well, the answer will come from the other side, so we'll leave this here. Let's see what that I packet was. So we've got index. Yeah, it's index. Okay, great. And then that index is being used to get the entity. And how is that index different than entity type? It is basically entity type. Okay, so this whole stack of stuff here, except for that I, is contained in there, but it's just entity ID. So if I were to pass in entity, or sorry, pass in the packet, which is create packet, and the entity, which is entity, right? So create packet is a net packet. We do a pointer, jump in here, that, packet p, entity.entity.id, done. So then we jump back to here. Okay, then we scroll back up here, take all of this stuff. Okay, that makes it a lot easier to see what's going on. Okay, go through the player clients. Create packet. Write what we're doing. Iterate. Player client 2. We're getting the entity from him. Writing that entity in there. Iterating and writing and writing and iterating. Okay, so let's see what happens. Create packet was corrupted. Interesting. The stack around the variable create packet was corrupted. Interesting. Interesting. Yep. There we go. Kids are asleep. Excellent. Wonderful. I'm going to stop at noon anyways. Okay. So, move around, move around. He's a little bit smoother. He's a little bit of jumpiness, but he's a little bit smoother. Okay. He's smooth. He's smoother. He's not smooth enough. He's just smoother. So I think that now that we have that, we can try out going a little bit more frequent. 625. Double the amount of updates. All right, we're moving around, looking good. Moving around. And you know what? That's pretty good. we're at 3 kilobytes per second. So when we started, we were at 25 kilobytes per second. We're down to 3 or 4 kilobytes. And he looks pretty good when he moves now. Like, it's not horrible. I could go one step further and double the amount of updates again. I do think 0.625 was working well, but we could try this, and that would probably make it really better, or really good. Really better. A lot better. Okay. That looks really good. And that looks good too. You know what? It looks so good I can't tell what the problem was anymore. So let's see. We're going to watch the attack orbs rotate perfectly fine. We're going to add 2 more over here. And we'll get you to trigger them. And then you can run around and see if everything's moving. And you are moving fine. And you're moving fine. So I think we're in a good spot. Now we're going to force a lot of additional lag. And the amount of information the client's getting has increased a ton. But we're going to move the player out of sight of those things and see if his movement looks smooth and the king's movement looks smooth. We're at 21 kilobytes per second. You don't really need, like, whenever I do this, it's like this isn't actually what's gonna be going on for the players. You're not gonna be fighting this many monsters at once. So the server is receiving 3 kilobytes per second. So the server's fine. The server's sending out 47 kilobytes per second, which not horrible, but let's see what's happening. All right, let's see what we got done for today. Fix the King client's update, or jumpiness was fixed. So I got 4 things done. That's pretty good. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I intend to try to stream weekly, not weekly, a couple times a week at night, around 7 or 8 p.m. I probably will try to keep somewhat of a consistent average. I keep saying 2 different things. I'm going to try to stream at least 3 or 4 times a week. Well, this was good. Thanks for stopping by, everybody, and I'll catch you next time. I have a Discord, so let's throw that out here real quick. Feel free to join, chat with me more if you want. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next stream. We've been making a ton of progress on this game, and just last stream somebody came in and said, wow, there's a lot that's changed since last time, and we keep moving forwards a lot. The things that tend to slow us down are the technical details of networking code, which I can go read a few papers and get some ideas of what the standard is for approaching, client side prediction and all that. And maybe I'll do a little bit more of that. But for now, making a ton of progress. Happy to talk more about what I'm doing. But for now, I'll say see y'all later. Enjoy your Labor Day. I'm going to enjoy mine.